Hello and welcome to Boomer Live once again after a lot of discussion in the backstage regarding what is a good projected score for South African team and what is a good score which South Africa will be looking to achieve on that pitch. And a lot of questions were raised regarding New Zealand and their possible decision of bowling first. That's what we were discussing in the backstage for the last 5 to 10 minutes. So we are going to talk about it in a long preparation. We are here live. Thank you guys once again. And I want to say you all to download the app Boomer 11 before we start the live show. Remember to check out our app. We have 15 minutes to make the team right now. Make your team. Obviously, there's some big changes, and of course, you all know New Zealand are bowling first today. And check that out. Look at the conditions, which we'll be talking about it. Do you want to have more batters in your team, or you want to keep a lot of all-round strength? Rachin Ravindra, a player in form. You can do all of this in Boomer 11 app for absolute free of course, and check out our premium contest as well. Kagiso Rabada is back in the team. Tim Southey is back in the team. So some bowling additions will do no wrong in your fantasy team. So I have Sandipani in general. I'll get to Sandipani first up. Two major changes on New Zealand. Tim Southey back in the team after that shocking bowling effort by New Zealand against Australia. And for South Africa, getting Kagiso Rabada was a no-brainer because they had to get him because I personally felt, on a wicket like this, Tabrez Shamsi wouldn't do a lot good. You had to bring an extra seamer, but at least I would have hoped Lungi Ngidi to sit out. But a surprising decision there as well.
Yeah, I think you pointed. I mean, you hit the nail in the coffin with the fact that this sort of pitch is not really going to assist spinners. So, okay, for this pitch, I understand dropping a Tabriz Shamshi, but I feel that Rabada was probably not 100% in the last game. Otherwise, they would have dropped Lungi and Gidi and brought in a Rabada in last game itself against Pakistan. So I
Yeah,
think that was something based on injury that he was dropped or injury concern that he was dropped, and he's back today and in place of Travis Shamshi, who is getting dropped after picking up 4 wickets. A bit harsh, but I think that's what good teams do. They assess the conditions, they know what kind of bowlers or what kind of players are going to be suitable for the conditions, and then they
yeah,
make the changes.
yeah,
Talking about Team Saudi, I think it is another call that he was unfit, and New Zealand were really struggling with the third seaming option. Lockie Ferguson did put up some good performances against some of the lower ranked teams. He was excellent against Bangladesh. He was very good against Afghanistan. But come the big teams, you saw him not really come to the party. A team, an opposition that can face your 150 plus balls with ease. I feel that you are not effective in Indian conditions if you are just bowling at 150 plus. Otherwise, Umran Malik would still have been in the Indian team, and Harris Ruff would have been the highest wicket taker of this tournament. Having said that,
absolutely.
I feel that you need line and length along with say the pace, and Tim Saudi coming in. We saw him bowling as the first change bowler because I don't see him opening the bowling with Trent Bolt. I believe they are going to stick to Trent Bolt and Matt Henry, as we saw in the bilateral series against England prior to the World Cup. New Zealand were playing the three seamers: Tim Saudi, Trent Bolt, and Matt Henry, where you saw Matt Henry and Trent Bolt opening the bowling. Tim Saudi was coming in as the first change, and he was
Yeah,
also being used in the middle overs and right before the death overs, where he can be a viable wicket-taking option with his change
yeah.
of pace and variations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, you Kapil says number two, number six is still fighting for a semi-final seat. I don't think as much as South Africa as in New Zealand or Australia at this point, but yeah, number three to number six are certainly fighting for one. Abel wearing the Argentine jersey to show support for Messi's Ballon d'Or. I agree. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not far away from wrong. I really wanted to show the support. Why Messi won the Ballon d'Or? Some people can sit and comment on Instagram and cry about it. That's what some people can do whole day, whole night. And while
That's what
others will
people
win
who
the
don't
Eid.
win do.
Yeah, that's what people do who don't win do. That's why they're called keyboard warriors. If you're 30 and 35 and above, and if you still haven't grown up, I can't help it, man. I think you need to be going back to your nappies, and that's an exact 12-year-old attitude, just like his fan base. I don't know who I'm talking about, but if you know, you know. I welcome Jaren as well. Jaren, let's talk about today's match. Let's not head into that discussion. I think we can do a full-on live for that later on. But yeah, interesting decision you reckon from New Zealand, considering South Africa are a team who have preferred batting first in this tournament. In a couple of occasions, they have batted second. One of the occasion it was a jailbreak from Keshav Maharaj. That was the last game. Other occasion they capitulated against Netherlands. I think they just played into their hands of letting South Africa to bat first. Now here, South Africa bats New Zealand out. With that South African bowling attack in Pune, there's something in the air later on in the day. Marco Jansen, Kageshwar Rabada, Lungi and Giri will be a tough, and let's say Gerald could say, will be tough to get away with.
Yeah, I think from what I can understand, the choice is always between the opposition's weakness and probably your advantage as well. Because I think New Zealand, in many ways, feel like probably if you look at it today, they're expecting Dew to come in later on, and it's possible. It's more than possible in a place like Pune where heat is always been a factor. I think there will be quite a good amount of Dew coming later on. So I think they believe or they trust that they can still put up a fight in case it gets out of hand. Because even against Australia, when they did end up giving a 380 odd run, 380 odd target in the first innings, they came very close to it. So I think in many ways New Zealand believe they have the batting prowess to counter the batting prowess of South Africa for sure, and that's the reason why they've elected it. And I think in many ways, yeah, you would have to say that it would have been a strategy to bat first, but then I think the advantage still will lie with the team that is batting second, just because of the due formation that can come in. And New Zealand is a confident enough team; they have a good enough batting lineup that they can prevent maybe another I think this maybe another Sri Lanka or something of that sort. What happened with South Africa in their first few matches?
Absolutely, good point there. But Sandeepan, often we speak about game awareness and situational awareness as well. Now, as per the game awareness, you would have gone in with you would have gone in with South Africa batting first, and you would chase. But in a situation like this, where you would want to really change things, especially putting South Africa in an uncomfortable position of what they had in the last couple of occasions, you would have backed your strength because even as a team, New Zealand have been good enough to defend totals. You can say that New Zealand have done that against Afghanistan. New Zealand did in their first couple of matches as well, how they defended totals quite comfortably. Isn't that slightly them also shifting away from our strength which they had, which was setting total? If you look at the last match, the biggest issue what they had was leaking runs. And let's be honest, okay, they came very close in that chase. And also, Jaren did mention yesterday in the evening about the 26 extras which were considered, which was considered by Australia there. All of this was never a game. No, Australia had won that game by batting them out. That's again going to put them in pressure. They're going to be again like, okay, let's restrict them to a 350 or below, or else we are going to be in serious trouble. And I still think South Africa had a better bowling lineup than Australia in this World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you that South Africa are a better bowling lineup than Australia in this World Cup. They have performed better than the experienced pros of Australia. But I would still back this New Zealand side to, uh, not fear the total that a South Africa puts up, because we saw how Dew played a huge factor in the game between Afghanistan and Sri Lanka. If you can put up a good bowling display, and New Zealand are a very, very good bowling lineup, they shouldn't get demerited by just that one game. I think Santner was probably their weakest link heading into the World Cup with the ball.
Yeah.
And he has turned up beautifully. He is bowling aggressive lines. He's trying to flight the ball. He's giving the ball air. He's not bowling those defensive lines,
Yeah.
trying to dart it in into the stumps. He has realized that taking wickets is the best way to restrict run flow. So I
Yeah.
think all in all, if the opening bowler, if Trent Bolt and Matt Henry can get something out from the pitch early on, and if they can pick up early wickets with Team Saudi coming in the middle, I think this is a very, very potent
I
bowling
think this
lineup.
is one of those games where you have man-to-man opposites of each other. When you take a Will
Yeah.
Young, you have a Themba Bavuma. You take a Conway, you have a Quinton de Kock. You take Rachin Ravindra, you have Eden Markram, Rassi
It's a bit
Vanuatu, Tom
unfair on
Wilson.
William to be compared to a Timba Bavuma. If it was have been Riza Hendricks,
Yeah,
I
I
would have
think
been said okay.
no, I think it's right now on paper what you can compare is what I'm doing. So Will Young, Themba Bavuma, Daryl Mitchell, you can put him with a Andre Klassen for that matter, David Miller and Glenn Phillips, Marco Jansen, Jimmy Neesham. So it is one of the closest matchup when you have to compare two teams, because then
But
if you
if you
talk about
just
batting
compare
depth as well,
right now, just
both the
the,
teams
the
are
head to
batting
head
till
that you
number
did,
10.
I think with the current form, South Africa are winning most of those head to head encounters. So I think current form plays a huge factor into these as well. And you would say a Henrik Klassen is in a better form than say Daryl Mitchell. You can even say that David Miller is in extremely good form when you compare him
Yeah,
to
you can still
Glenn
say, but
Phillips.
it's you could say it's like a 45-55. But then if you can really pick one of them, it's really very hard. That's why you can say it's one of the most evenly matched contests of this World Cup, because both the teams are battling number 10. You have Matt Henry and you have Tim Southey. Then you on the other end you have Kagiso Rabada and Keshav Maharaj coming in, or Gerald Koitz and Kagiso Rabada all can handle themselves with the bat. So on that particular regard, this is one of the evenly matched contests when it comes to this World Cup, where it is going to be a heavyweight clash. We've often seen when these two teams meet in an IC tournament, or for that matter in a World Cup, the games does go down the wire. And this is going to be another exciting match. Last time I think it was Kane Williamson's 100, which helped South Africa to get over the line. And in 2015, you saw that last ball finish, or second last ball finish, with Grant Elliott tonking Dale Steyn over mid wicket, where the scenes were just ecstatic for New Zealand, and South Africa wouldn't want to remember that. But it's always been evenly matched because of the balance which these two teams carry.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also been a long time since these two teams have faced each other. I think 4 years since they faced each other in a one day match. It's been a
Oh, isn't
long
it?
time. I think the last time they faced them was in the 2019 World Cup, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it's been a long time. I think not a lot of these players have faced each other as well in their own countries. In playing for their own countries, they haven't faced each other for a long time. So in that sense, yeah, and I think just another slight bit of spice that will add up to this contest is the fact that the Rugby World Cup just concluded with South Africa winning another one, and New Zealand was the team they beat in the finals. It was very
Yeah.
recently concluded, and both the teams are a rugby crazy nation, so that just adds a little bit more to it. But I think if you really have to choose two teams on paper, they match on the points table as well. They're not very further away from each other. But the only thing that I feel that differentiates the two teams is the fact that South Africa has the momentum at this point in time. New Zealand have lost their last two matches, one against India, one against Australia, where both the matches you will say that they kind of let important moments go, and the match really closed down
Okay,
on
I have
them.
a question for you here. Would
Yeah,
you take momentum out of a game where you absolutely pulled like a jailbreak, where you absolutely pulled your hands from the jaws of defeat, or would
yeah.
you take momentum in a game where you almost chase down 388, where you make yourself believe that we can possibly chase down big targets? So it's a very interesting thing, because when you talk on
It
momentum
is.
as a factor, the former one which I really mentioned about when you are chasing 270 and where you almost collapse is not going to give you a lot of momentum. That's going to make you question more often than not. But whereas when you almost raise down 388, that's going to give you the momentum, thinking that okay, even if you post a score of 350 in excess of that, we back ourselves to chase it.
Yeah, I mean, two factors for that, Abel. First up, I think you're right. I think it also depends on how you look at the match, what you derive from the match. And New Zealand will be mighty proud of the way their batters performed. And even though there were 26 extras given by Australia in that, I mean, you compare that to what New Zealand gave. I think they gave less than 10 extras. They've been very disciplined in that sense when it comes to their extras. They've been very miserly. But having said that, if you look at it in many ways, South Africa will think, okay, that was us chasing. It was a tough pitch to play, and we won a game considering the legacy they've had. Right, whenever South African teams of the past have been put under pressure, including 2015 against New Zealand, they've crumbled. And they've crumbled in the worst possible way. 2015, if you remember, South Africa made a lot of fielding errors. South Africa, probably the best legacy fielding nation in the world, I think. I think you look at every South African team that has played the World Cup, you'll never say they were a bad fielding side. They've been an excellent fielding side through and through, and making mistakes in fielding, that just shows how they've crumbled under pressure. But to take that perspective and see that they were able to do it, and on the other hand, they're not even chasing today. So they'll think that we have done this time and time often. We're not even chasing today. We are setting a target. We have done this before. I think they'll be mighty confident. And the fact that on their worst day, they were able to pull a win, they'll just feel that much more confident. On the other hand, New Zealand, especially the match against India, you would say New Zealand had it in their hands, and they let go of it. They let Virat Kohli take control. I know Virat Kohli is a great player, and more often than not, as long as he stays there, you're going to lose the match. But even then, they'll feel hard done, especially by that match. And then to
Yeah,
have given 386 away in the next match, where their bowling completely looked listless, and they're
yeah,
bowling again in the sun. So
yeah.
that is there. I mean, the fact that they're bowling again in the sun makes you
And
realize that
let's just say, last game New Zealand were also very sloppy in the field. They dropped a couple of catches,
yes,
which is so
yes.
unlike New Zealand to
But
do.
it's a good thing that Abel they're still bowling first, which means they're not really looking at that match
Yep.
and have lost
And
complete
just
confidence.
looking from the first over,
Yeah,
Gerald, they are on the money. I mean, it was 2 runs which just scored in the first over, but that fielding efforts from the New Zealand inner circle boys, it was outstanding. They saved a boundary. They made sure
yeah.
Quinton de Kock's couple of shots were denied of more runs, and I think that's good momentum. That's the kind of start you want to get off to. Saliman, I'll come to you now. Now, when we talk about New Zealand's bowling, Trent Bolt will have to strike early, and he has not in the first over. But if Trent Bolt and Matt Henry strikes to get rid of Quinton de Kock, how much of that gives confidence to a team like New Zealand Navy to make even more inroads and to put them under tremendous pressure, make sure Sandner or the likes of Tim Southey operates much better through the middle overs.
Yeah, I think it is very important to have early wickets, especially in a team against a team like South Africa who can really run away with the game if they have wickets in hand. Having said that, I really feel Matt Henry is the bowler that you should look out for because he was taken to the cleaners in the game against Australia. Trent Bolt
Yeah,
still came back and picked up 3 wickets in that one over in the last over that he bowled. But it was Matt Henry who was traveling at around 12 to 13 runs per over in his first spell and then the second spell as well. So he was the
yeah,
bowler that was targeted. So I think he's going to come out hard. And even in the game against India, you saw Rohit Sharma really get down the track and play Matt Henry like a spinner. So
yeah,
I think he is the bowler that is a bit low on confidence, and he will look to make amends. And bowling against Bavuma in a pitch that has some assistance for the pacers, I think he both Matt Henry and Trent Bolt looks to be in shape to pick up a wicket early on. And if you can just pile on the pressure on say a Quinton de Kock and just put a deep square leg and a fine leg and keep bowling short to him, I think you are eventually going to get him. I think Quinton de Kock is that one predictable batter who is like Rohit Sharma. You give him a short delivery, he'll look to tonk you over a deep
yeah.
square leg for a
Exactly like what
six.
happened against Shaheen Afridi.
Yeah,
No, I think Quinton also has an issue when it comes to early in his, early in his innings where if you pitch the ball up, right, and not a half volley, but rather a good length, kind of a foolish good length where you kind of can entice him to drive the ball. He sometimes ends up throwing his hands at it and not really, putting his feet to it. Not taking the big stride in when you're looking for a cover drive of that length. I think around the fourth, fifth arm stump line, he sometimes goes fishing outside, and you've seen him lose
Yeah.
wickets like that as well. So I think maybe playing around those two lengths can really produce a wicket.
and
Yeah,
also I think
exactly.
spin is a good option as well because you have the fifth bowling option of Glenn Phillips was
Yeah,
extremely, I mean, brilliant in the game against Australia to concede 3.7 runs per over in a game where the other members have gone well in excess of 8 runs per over is I think a spectacular feat. So I know that they will be looking to employ him towards the I mean after once the power play is done. So I don't know whether a Mitchell Santner or a Glenn Phillips. I think both are will bowl into the wicket for say a Quinton de Kock. But I still feel that that is a good option because you would want Quinton de Kock to attack you in the
Yeah,
first 5 to 10 overs because that is when he is really vulnerable and can give his wicket away cheaply.
absolutely. I also think from the first couple of overs, from what I'm seeing, there's not a lot of movement there, but there is slight bit of movement off the surface, not in the air, but off the surface. But if you're landing in good lengths, I think it's a very fresh pitch, and I also think this will also mean that if you're ready to spend, first few overs on the wicket without losing any wickets, you can absolutely make the most out of it. And your eyes can light up, and you can take on the ballers. What do you reckon about that? It just looked like that wicket which I saw for uh, India versus Bangladesh over here, where if you're able to spend a couple of overs or maybe 4 to 5 overs once that new ball stops doing quite a lot of the wicket, then you can make the most out. You can play through the line, you can get on top of the bounce because the bounce in Pune is always true. That's one thing which you can always trust with Pune, and the ball is not going to turn a lot as well. So that's one factor which you can consider for today's game.
Yeah,
yeah, I
exactly.
think
And I think that's been the template. Yeah, sorry. I think that's been the
yeah.
template for, I mean, for most of the pitches in India. If you can really apply yourselves for 4 to 5 overs, then I think it makes batting a lot easier for you. And we have seen this sort of conditions for other teams as well. You saw Bangladesh getting off to, not in the last game, but talking about the India versus Bangladesh game, you saw Bangladesh getting off to the worst possible start and scoring at a really slow rate for the first 8 overs or first 6 overs, 19, and then they went after the bowling. So I think this is that sort of a pitch where if Quinton de Kock and Temba Bavuma can really apply themselves for the first 5 to 6 overs, show Trent Bolt and Matt Henry the respect that they deserve for the first 3 overs, and then they once they are in, they can really take the attack on the bowlers and make amends for the run rate real quick. I think uh, you can easily go in at a run rate of 8 to 10 in the last 4 5 overs of the power play if you haven't lost a wicket already.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, Jen, you reckon, from here on, what will be South Africa's ideal score? Because South Africa will also know that New Zealand will be capable of chasing anything close to 300, 250, 280 of that score. So they would also be under slight bit of pressure to outbat the New Zealand team on the surface, which is score 350, 360, which they are quite comfortable of scoring. If you look at the last 4 5 innings where they batted first, they have done that quite successfully. So they know that they have to score something around that.
Yeah, I mean anything above 350 is probably on par here, to be very frank. And the reason I say that is because of the explosive batting these two teams have had, and New Zealand are no duds while chasing as well. I think when it comes to chasing, they're the second best team after India when it comes to the amount of runs scored. Because I mean they have only played 3 matches, but they've scored the second highest runs in this World Cup by just chasing, and their average and their strike rate is not pretty bad when each of them are chasing. So they're not a bad team when it comes to chasing. 4 matches that they've played, 2 of them they've won by chasing. I think those are the one against England and then the one against Bangladesh. They won by chasing. Now, England, especially that match, I think it was a New Zealand masterclass for sure. And obviously, where you saw the likes of Rachin Ravindra and Devon Conway come through. But I think the worry that they'll have is not much, right? Even against Australia, if you see, they did put up a chasing masterclass. It was just unfortunate. New Zealand, Australia kind of held their nerve, and I think 22 to win was not at any easy task, especially on a ground where there was not going to be any due factor. But now today, with a little bit of due factor that's definitely going to come in, I think New Zealand will feel a lot more confident, especially if they can restrict South Africa anything below 350.
And also, it
Absolutely,
got
but
easier to bat under the lights in the game
Yeah.
against
yeah,
Sri Lanka and
yeah, but
Afghanistan as
let's
well.
also give credit to New Zealand bowlers in that game because that looked like a 450, 470 score, but they pulled back Australia to a considerable margin, even in that,
Exactly.
even with the start they gave away. And now I think it's a very good start from the New Zealanders. I mean, after going for plenty of runs in the power play in the last game to pull back the way they have done so far. I mean, especially with talking about the legs. I'm not talking about the number of wickets they've taken so far. It's just a couple of overs, but the legs are so much more confident. It does not look like a team which was tong for 380 odd runs. It looks like a team they've put that behind them, and that's one good trait about New Zealand team. It doesn't matter how they perform throughout the tournament, but come the right moments, they know how to capitalize it. They don't really care about their past performance. This team is never feathered with that. They are a team who's pressing focus, and that's been their biggest strength if you look in all IC tournaments.
Yeah, anyone you want to take that or?
No, no, you take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to say that New Zealand have at least they haven't really gone through all the way yet in an ICC tournament. Agree, except for of course the World Test Championship. But aside from that, I still think when it comes to nerves of steel, a lot of these New Zealand players have got that. Kane Williamson, Jimmy Neesham, these lads have done it. It's just that last one step that has been missing, and it's very much possible this World Cup could be theirs. And that's one credit that you have to give to the New Zealand team. I think if you compare it to South Africa, they have been the better side. At least if you give them a sniff, they are the ones who are going to keep fighting. And I think the only match where we saw them not do that is probably that Australia New Zealand final. But then it was also their first ever final in the history of their cricketing as a cricketing nation. And since then on, they've really become a threat every ICC tournament. They came very close again in the T20 World Cup that was held in Dubai, and no one expected them to be that close in that one as well, because people expected it to be the likes of India, Pakistan, all the Asian superpowers to do well there, and New Zealand was a good team there as well. A few things went against them in that World Cup as well, but I think overall you have to say that they have been the team that really puts on a performance.
Matt Henry bowling to Bavuma and Bavuma playing and missing kind of reminds me of those Test match series I think it was recently or last year when South Africa went to New Zealand, and where Matt Henry had a good series, and also South Africa also had a good series with Marco Jansen. It kind of reminds me of that, plays and misses. He's not getting any wood on the ball so far. But something money thoughts on Temba Bavuma as a player. There are a lot of questions on his place in the team. There are a lot of questions when it comes to him, holding his place after Riza and Ricks came in and performed. I reckon this is such an important inning for Temba Bavuma as well. If he fails today, the questions will be even more prominent for him to just be dropped and get a Riza Hendricks, because I don't think that really matters when it comes to the color quota what they hold. Riza Hendricks is also a colored player, so he can really come in and replace him, and Aiden Markram can captain this team.
Yeah, I think I really don't understand them selecting and going ahead with the Temba Bavuma game in and game out, because I would have understood it if it was Eoin Morgan sort of a situation when he was out of form, because Morgan was an excellent captain. He had the insights to control the game. And South Africa have that option in say, Aiden Markram, who has done it for the IPL side as well, who has captained his side beautifully in the IPL. Whenever he is asked to captain South Africa, I think he does a decent enough job as well. So I don't really understand Temba Bavuma's inclusion in the team. Timba Bavuma is a great fielder, but so is Riza Hendricks. And I think Hendricks is a far better batter. And whenever he has been given the opportunity, Hendricks has come good for the side. Be it a T20 or the ODI series, he has always consistently scored half centuries for fun, if you may say. And if you talk about Timba Bavuma's last few performances, or even last, say, 50 performances, I think he is a very mediocre cricketer who can't really utilize flat tracks as well. I think today, once again, he has got some sort of a start, but he just gives it away so easily
So as soon as we
upstairs.
started talking about Temba Bavuma, he played two racing cover drives, textbook cover drives rather.
Yeah,
You know,
but that is the problem. I
shorting.
mean, he plays those cover drives, he reaches 25, 26, and then gets out to the short ball. So, I mean, eh, it's of no use unless he goes on to score a century, because I think in this South African lineup, you have all the other players who can consistently score centuries for you to get you out of jail. And I think
Yeah.
Timba Bavuma is one player that cannot do that, either strike rate wise nor by with his batting average. So I think, yeah, you compare him with Quinton de Kock, Rassie van der Dussen, Henrik Klaassen, Aiden Markram, David Miller, all are match winners. Can you say the same for Temba Bavuma? How many matches has he won for South Africa batting with his batting performance? And that is what makes me think I don't really know why they are going ahead with the Temba Bavuma. I think it is just showing confidence in him, instilling a lot of belief in him, to and saying that, yeah, you are our man to lead us for the say for till the
Yeah.
next cycle at least.
Hmm.
But I mean, it gives out the wrong impression. If I'm not wrong, there was another time when when he was the captain of the series, and he was dropped from the series because of his poor performances, and Riza Hendricks came in between. Even in the T20 World Cup last time around as well, we were very critical about Temba Bavuma. He was dropped. Riza Hendricks came in for 1 or 2 games,
Yeah.
performed really well, scored those half centuries, and there was no Temba Bavuma there onwards. So I don't really know when is he really going to cross that threshold once again, because he is that sort of a player
But if you
who
look,
is just.
he scored runs in the bilateral games throughout this year. He was striking at 100. He had an average close to 42, 46. But in
He's
this World Cup, he's not been
in
quite
in
impressive.
in your words, he's a player that does not excite me. I think
Yeah.
the excitement comes from the memes that we get when Temba Bavuma plays. Apart from that, I don't see Temba Bavuma as an exciting commodity in the world of cricket.
Actually, a lot of players don't excite me in that both these teams. One is Tom Latham, one is Bill
No, no,
Young,
yeah,
Vince
obviously,
Johnson.
but I'm talking about the South African team. All are match winners.
Yeah, yeah.
If you compare the top six, all are match winners apart from a Temba Bavuma. So what
Yeah, I
is he
think
doing in
Lisa
the league?
Hendricks is a bigger match winner any day. I mean, look at his white ball stats. But Jaren, you reckon that this performance will hold bigger questions on Tempo if he fails today? I mean, if he doesn't get off to a big score, which is a 50 or a 60 or a 100, then the questions will be even more prominent to bring in a Riza Hendricks in the next game, because it's
Yeah.
against India. Then you don't want to be under pressure going into the latter stage of the World Cup. But who's going to take the call? Is it going to be the management? Is it going to be the cricket or South Africa board? Or is it going to be Temba himself saying that, okay, I'm not doing any good for the team, let me drop myself?
I think in many ways they look at Temba Bavuma as a leadership figure, and there's also the other issue, right? It's I think there's also a lot of social ish, I mean, and cultural factors to it. Temba Bavuma is I think the first ever black man to be a South African captain, if I'm not wrong. And that is a huge deal in South Africa, and there are people who back him for that reason, and he's been a leader for them. But I think you guys are spot on in one thing: the way South African cricket have moved on, right? You just don't feel like he adds to that template. You sometimes feel he bogs them down when it comes to that template, and that's been a bigger issue. The kind of start that they get, because even Quinton de Kock is someone who can make up for a slow start, but he has a slow start more often than not. Not many days you'll see Quinton de Kock go after the bowling from ball one. There are days Quinton de Kock wakes up on a different side of the bed and goes after the bowling. But most often than not, he's someone, especially when it comes to the one day format, likes to build an innings. And Temba is a very similar player. I think he can do well in one day format, but he's just playing for the wrong team. This is not the team that likes to start slow. This is a team that likes to go and keep going. That's something that I told earlier
I
as well.
think the only other
They
team
look
that
like the
Temba
new
Bavuma
England.
will get a spot for is probably a B grade team. You take him to Zimbabwe or say another team, he'll do well. But I don't think for South Africa he belongs to South Africa. And talking about the colored, I mean the comment on the colored thing that he's the
Putra.
first black person to captain your side, then might as well have 11 black players for your team and allow all
But
these
let's be,
Quinton de Kock
there's one
and
interesting
go
thing
to
about South
England, go to
Africa.
New
I don't know
Zealand,
if you
play for
guys have
them.
heard of it. There is even racism right now in South African dressing room. One of the analysts of South Africa did come out saying that he was an Indian. He's a Malayali, rather, an analyst who was part of South African dressing room. Came out saying that the whites don't sit with the blacks and blacks sit separately. There is not a lot of communication, camaraderie between blacks and whites in the dressing room. I mean, these things needs to be questioned even more in this day and age. If you have a country and if you have quota-based
And even
system,
this is not a solution, right? If there is racism in the dressing room, putting a black person who is not a good cricketer to really come and lead the side is not the solution to that problem, and not giving anything, I mean, to the South African fans as well. This sort of I mean quota allocation or this sort of reservation is the only reason why players from South Africa migrate to other countries and play for them. You have a Devon Conway, Ben Stokes as the biggest examples. I mean, they are an asset to the country that they're playing for. Devon Conway will play against South Africa. He was a player who wasn't selected. I mean, political reasons aside, I also feel that he was not in the best of forms playing in the South African
I think
county.
Kevin Peterson
But
is another example from
Kevin
the base.
Peterson is another great example. So, I mean, if you want to set an example, just let 11 blacks play for South Africa and just ask the white players to migrate to other countries and play for them.
No,
But
I
that's a
think
big issue with South African cricket, or else they would have been at world power by now. I mean, let's
I
be
think
honest.
when that initial thing happened, right, and this is not, I mean, all three of us are no one to comment about it because unfortunately, I mean, we're not part of the culture. We don't know a lot of things about the culture, but from the outside, it sometimes does feel like they overcorrected what happened after that apartheid. I think after a certain amount of time, and we speak about this as a country who also follows a certain set of reservation, but maybe at least in places like sports or in such areas you probably don't need such reservations. But a counter argument or the devil's argument from the other side has always been that a sport like cricket has never really reached out, right? Cricket, especially in South Africa, has been a sport of the elite. White
Yeah.
players, like for example, where does cricket come from, right? In India, for instance, we have a domestic system. Our players usually come out of these clubs, and then very local clubs. They're picked up by scouts or otherwise school cricket, and from there
Yeah.
on, each state has its own different setting or each
Mhm.
different system. England, for instance, believes in county. Their schools are very strong when it comes to or rather their clubs. The county clubs, they themselves have their own affiliate, clubs and teams and stuff like that. Australia follows in a very similar way, where each state, each district has their own local clubs, and they have
Yeah.
their rich history, and players come from there. But when it comes to South Africa, there are few schools. I think each city has certain set of schools, right? And the elite schools. These elite schools have their own cricket teams, and players come from there. For example, Faf du Plessis, AB de Villiers come from the same school. That was a very elite school. I can't remember the name of the school. The issue is these schools are not really affordable to the colored players, and that is the reason why these players have struggled the most. And South African cricket haven't really reached out to these colored players, and the only way they enter the team is through the reservation, and that is
Absolutely.
something that needs to be solved. That's grassroots error from the South African cricket. I mean, the cricket South Africa, that needs to be resolved, and only then the reservation can be made obsolete.
And I
Absolutely.
think Kapil Verma is pointing out players who have really migrated from South Africa. Apart from a Jofra Archer, I feel all the other players are white players because I mean they feel that they deserve to be
Jofra
playing in
Archer
the
came from
Jofra Archer
Jamaica.
is from
Yes,
the Caribbean.
not
Yeah,
the
yeah
South
that's a
Caribbean.
African.
mistake. Kapil, he's
So
from the
Van der
Caribbean.
Merwe is a good example. Say a David Wiese as well. Players who are migrating to other countries. Most of them are
David
white.
Wiese migrated post his international retirement of South African cricket. I mean, I don't mind that. Even Monty Morkel did consider going to Australia and playing for a while. So a lot of
Yeah,
these things has to be spoken
but
But
about.
Monem
I'm just
also
talking
Looking
about the
also.
last
color
time,
color of the players that are going out. I mean, most of them are white.
I mean, at least now over the last 5 to 6 years, it's considerably low. I mean, Devin Conway is one example you can bring, but other than that, it's not as much as what you saw
No,
prior
but
to
there
that.
has been lots of conflicts within the dressing
Because
room as well.
coal
You know, the
pack deals is
camaraderie is not
off
there.
because of Brexit. A lot of players had to come back to South Africa because the coal pack deals were off post the Brexit.
Yeah,
So, so that's one of the reasons why this is not happening at a prominent level now. But once they find another solution, I think Namibia or Zimbabwe will be even more an opportunity for all these players to go. But the issues with there, you don't get paid a lot. South Africa
yeah,
still with South African league coming in. I still see South African cricket improving from here on with SA20. There's a lot
correct.
more open market available in South Africa. A lot of these talents are getting recognized. For example, Gerald Coetzee is a classic example of how he just came through the SA20 and he performed well.
Hmm.
We all agree that he had a great time playing for the Titans in back in South Africa. But the way in which he's come into the system has been very prominent to look into. Or for the example, Tristan Stubbs or Devol Brewis as well,
Yeah,
or Marco Janssen for that example. They've all come through leagues, and there is a lot more openness about South Africa accepting good performances these days, and it's good to see. I think under Graham Smith, they've done a good job so far in South African cricket. But every
yeah.
now and then you will find an issue. I think Faf du Plessis crisis was a clear-cut example of how they've not really dealt with a senior player well. And I know
Hmm.
these things do happen everywhere.
Not
At
just
least
Fab
South
Duplessis. I
Africa
think you
is
have
a
heard it from Jack Callis as well. There was some controversy with Jack Callis not singing the
I mean,
national
I'm not
anthem.
talking
Then
about the previous one. I'm talking about right now. Over the last 5 to 6 years, how South
yeah, I
Africa has
think
been
Graham
much
Smith
better.
has done a good job. Obviously, when you talk about Graham Smith, he was a great captain. He's a great leader, and you expect him to
Yeah.
be a great administrator as
But
well.
tell me one thing: how does Kumar Dharmasena keep umpiring New Zealand's important games?
How does Richard Kettleborough keep umpiring in India's important games?
I think it's all fudge, isn't it? Because Kumar Dharmasena has to be there during New Zealand games. He'll take a selfie, and that guy's so cold. He goes and takes selfies with all the losing teams. I think he understood it's a
Yeah,
trend, and he keeps
yeah.
doing this. And wasn't he the one whose video footages were leaked in one of these apps?
Yes, I think he was the one. Yeah.
Jaren has the footage. If you want, you can DM him.
I think the internet has the footage, so if you want, you guys can. It's up to you guys.
Jaren has the footage, guys. He's NFTing it. NFT king.
I have no idea why would I do that, but yeah, sure. I mean, Abel was the one who shared it to me. I remember.
But let's do a score prediction from here on. What's the score you reckon South Africa will end up? Because right now South Africa have
Uh,
gotten a move on after the first 3 overs.
I think a 365, 370. That's where I
370.
go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sanjivani? I think we lost him.
Yeah.
Did you say something, Sanjivani?
No,
You
no,
got
I think
stuck
I
in.
would go with a 325 or 330.
Okay, 330. Good enough. But yeah, until and unless they don't pick up wickets here, but still, I still think New Zealand have got onto a decent start. 7 overs, 29 odd. Trent Bolt has balled well. If you can get a couple of wickets, just add 2 more wickets to the score from here, South Africa are in serious trouble. So they've not let South Africa to get away. They're still under check. I think the biggest test for New Zealand will be how they ball in the middle phase.
Yeah.
Sandler will have a job to do. Southey will have a job to do. Again, it'll come down to Glenn Phillips and Jimmy Neesham and Rachin Ravindra to do the fifth baller's job well. So if they can do that job well, I think South Africa will target Jimmy Neesham for sure and also Rachin Ravindra. But you'll have to get a Quinton de Kock out, or else you won't be able to use Sandler as much. You won't be able to use Rachin Ravindra as much.
Or even a Glenn Phillips.
I agree. But yeah, I think Temba Verma looks in supreme touch. Today's the day he's going to show to the world why he's been one of the best batters of 2023. Average of 61, strike of 102, um, right out of the history books. Maybe he might be the first captain to lead South Africa to the World Cup, Rugby World Cup, Cricket World Cup. What year to end for South Africa?
Yeah.
But I've
I
always
think we'll talk
noticed
about that when South Africa first reaches the semi-final. Then they go for the finals because South Africa has never reached the finals of the World Cup. You have to keep
it
that
has
into
to
account.
change.
They have reached the
It
semi-finals
has
five,
to
six
change at
times.
some stage.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, when New Zealand faced South
in
Africa in
Shrey Bakhtar's
2015,
words, hope the history doesn't repeat again. So Bakhtar would say history will repeat itself, where South
And
Africa
it did.
doesn't make. It did, yes. That's how they are as a community. Calm, ऐसा ही है. They don't know what they say. But
I
yeah,
think New Zealand and South Africa have been the second best and third best teams in this World Cup so far, uh, after Pakistan, of course, world
what's
number
more
one.
exciting? New Zealand, Bangladesh playing Pakistan or coffee with Karan?
Coffee with Karan, hands down. I almost dozed off twice yesterday.
I'm not kidding. I was watching coffee with Karan yesterday during that game.
More spice to your life, Abel.
Yeah. Abel likes to watch
And
such things.
yeah, I just
Abel
want
was
to know what is all the hype about.
Kaleshi,
There were a lot
Kalesh.
of comments which
Abel
were
was one of the people that Deepika Padukone knew back then.
damn.
Abel,
I was
I think
12,
next invite is
bro.
to
I
you.
was 12. You're telling me
I
as a
just said she
12
knew
or
you.
11
Why
year
are you
old.
going beyond that?
I was 12 when that happened, bro.
I just said
I
she
was
knew
12
you.
or
Why?
11. I
She
was
can't know a
11
12-year-old.
rather.
She cannot know a
Dude,
12-year-old Abel. What is wrong with knowing a 12-year-old?
dude, what do you think I'll do as 11-year-old with Deepika?
I don't know. Get an autograph. I don't know. You knew her. She knew you.
Actually, I didn't know much of Deepika back then. I never used to watch her.
Yeah.
But let's ask Sandeep who was his favorite actress.
I think if India wins the World Cup, I'll say that.
How does it even matter?
No,
India winning
I
the
My
World
mean,
Cup.
how
favorite
does it
actress
how
is
Or
how
your
does it
favorite
even
actress is
matter,
going to play the
matter who?
World Cup?
No,
my
how
favorite
does it
actress
even
is
matter who my
Urvashi
favorite
Rautela. I
actress
think
is?
my favorite is
Oh,
Urvashi
he's
Rautela.
accepted. His favorite actress is Urvashi Rautela. I mean, what is
Yeah.
wrong in that?
Yeah. Nothing. I
You
just
tell me who's
accepted
your
it.
favorite actress.
Yeah.
So she is soon to be I mean, bride of Pakistan.
Who?
why? Why Pride of
Mahira
Pakistan?
Khan?
Not bride, I said bride.
Bride?
Bride.
Yeah.
He कौन है बे? He
Call
watches some
who?
random Indian serials and all I see.
I'm just saying that she'll go on to marry somebody from Pakistan.
Who is
Who's
she?
this?
Who is
Urvashi
this?
Rautela.
Why are you saying
Who is she
someone from
dating?
Pakistan? How is this? I have no heads or tails about this.
Oh, I mean you're not familiar with
Now
the
you're
memes
telling
that.
me I watch gossip. This guy is a gossip king, man.
I
Good
swear.
news.
He's
No, I mean it's all
you're
over the
publishing
memes, right?
things that are all in
It's
public
it's it's
knowledge.
all over the memes. Urvashi Rautela praising players like Nasim Shah, and I mean it's well known to people.
She's just doing it for the views.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But who's your favorite? Sandeep
I
Bani.
mean, so are we. We are also doing it for the views as well.
You like who? You like who again? That's the question.
I mean, how does that matter in terms of cricket? I don't have a favorite of sorts in terms of actress, but I love Shah Rukh Khan, the
As
personality that
actress, not actor.
I that is what I'm saying. I don't have a favorite actress. I have a favorite
Yeah.
actor, and it's Shah Rukh Khan, and I
Well,
think
I
he
agree
has a
with you,
great
especially when it
personality.
comes to um, one major factor over here. Why we have taken into this discussion. It's just that we are bored. We had to keep some conversation going.
And also, we
And
have no views. That is another concern.
yeah, I think these kind of things it really does spice up. Kal, I saw a video. Shubman Gill was hanging out with Sara Tendulkar. I think these kind of things will really help us gain some views.
I think that was a morph pick, but okay.
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
it
There
was,
was a real video which came out last evening
who was it?
in Mumbai.
I
Okay.
just saw the mock.
I mean, after watching Coffee with
Uh,
Karan, I think Abel went onto the web and did
gossip.
his did his bit of
There's a
surfing.
gossip web. I didn't know about this. If you guys are part of it, glad that you guys are spilling the beans. Now there's a website for gossips. Okay, we will talk about all of these later. We'll do coffee with Sandeep Bani. Chai Pani with
Yeah,
Sandeep Bani is
Chai
what
Pani
the
with Sandeep is
yeah.
a good segment.
That's a good segment where he'll sit and talk about all the gossips. He'll know who's marrying who in Pakistan. He'll know which cricketer is dating who.
I know when
Gossip.
Shoaib Malik and Sania Mirza are going to separate.
Oh, are they going to separate? But yesterday only they posted when their son's birthday together.
अरे
Do
आएगा
not
आएगा वो
challenge
next.
Sandeep.
Yeah,
He
he
knows
knows a
more.
lot.
Yeah.
He knows if Virat Kohli is having a second child. Also.